There doesn't appear to be a larger movie star in the world right now than Tom Cruise. Each of Cruise's new action movies is a big deal since he's the only actor crazy enough to perform all of his own stunts, and the enormous success of the Mission Impossible series and Top Gun Maverick has proven that his fan base hasn't diminished. Even if not every Cruise action movie achieves that level of popularity, he nevertheless had some small success with recent films in the genre including Jack Reacher, Oblivion, Edge of Tomorrow, and American Made. This just highlights the peculiar box office failure of Night and Day, a movie that appeared all but guaranteed to be a hit. In the 2010 action comedy Night and Day, Cruise worked with renowned director James Mangold for the first time and reunited with Cameron Diaz for the first time since 2001's Vanilla Sky. The quirky romance tale centers on the eccentric secret agent Roy Miller, Cruise, who enlists the help of auto mechanic June Havens, Diaz, for an exciting journey while dodging CIA agents. The Mummy, Rock of Ages, Valkyrie, and the critically panned Oscar bait film Lions for Lambs weren't what his fans wanted to see. Cruise hasn't been entirely constant at the box office, but his films that didn't succeed seem to be the ones where he strayed outside of his comfort zone. But it felt like Cruise would like an action-adventure thriller with a well-known co-star, a gifted director, and an interesting premise. In contrast to the rest of his filmography, Night and Day's box office failure stands out like a sore thumb. It was also puzzling given that Diaz was still a major star at the time and that Mangold had gone on to enjoy success in a variety of genres with 3:10 to Yuma, Walk the Line, Identity, and Girl, Interrupted. On a $117 million production budget, Night and Day brought in little over $260 million globally, including only $76 million in the US. When marketing costs and theater owner dues are taken into consideration, it would be regarded as a failure. Even though it had skill, Night and Day became infamous because to a peculiar marketing strategy, unclear genre aspirations, bad timing, and unfairly unfavorable reviews. Although the action scenes were strongly highlighted in the movie's marketing and trailers, it was also very evident that this was a romantic comedy that felt out of place. Despite Cruise's long-standing success in the business, he had little prior experience doing a comedy this absurd other than his outrageous prolonged cameo in Tropic Thunder. It was Cruise's first major release since the leaked Scientology video caused great controversy in 2008, therefore it may have been difficult for some audiences to stomach seeing Cruise play something so self-deprecating and purposefully antagonistic. For Cruise, romance was a peculiar endeavor. He had starred in a number of romantic classics in the 1990s, such as Jerry Maguire, Far and Away, Days of Thunder, and Eyes Wide Shut, but in the 21st century, he had mainly stayed with action, science fiction, and epic movies. This was also the time when, coincidentally, his love life became the subject of tabloid journalists. Ironically, Vanilla Sky, a controversial movie in which Cruise had starred, was the final significant romantic movie. When compared to the more positive reviews of his on-screen romance with Penelope Cruz in the same movie, Cruise's chemistry with Diaz had drawn harsh criticism. It's possible that audiences weren't as excited to see Cruise and Diaz together once more. In its opening weekend, Night and Day faced off against the enormous box office behemoth that was Toy Story 3, which went on to become the year's top-grossing movie and earned over $1 billion at a period when it was far less typical. The first Toy Story movie in nearly a decade was bringing in children, parents, and older fans who were nostalgic for the original two movies, even though theoretically the audience would skew younger than the group that Night and Day was targeting. It was a cross-generational hit that took over theaters and gave competing movies a small window of opportunity to try to make a claim. Throughout the summer, Toy Story 3 was able to compete favorably with PG-13 action movies intended at a broad audience, such as Robin Hood, The A-Team, and Jonah Hex. During its second weekend, Night and Day competed with the Adam Sandler comedy Grown Ups, which despite receiving mixed reviews, enjoyed better word of mouth and was geared toward a broader audience. Compared to Night and Day, Grown Ups was a much simpler comedy, and its simpler plot may have helped it appeal to a wider audience. The fact that the reviews were mainly negative across the board didn't help. There weren't as many negative reviews as there were for Jonah Hex and Robin Hood, but there weren't many raves that suggested it was anything special either. Despite the fact that Mangold had made several excellent movies, he wasn't yet well known enough to compel casual viewers to seek out his work in the same way that Michael Bay or Christopher Nolan could. Night and Day struggled against Toy Story 3 on its opening weekend, and by the end of the summer, it had been forgotten. It's a regrettable legacy for a movie that has a lot of positive aspects. Diaz is one of our best comic actors whose work frequently goes unnoticed, and Cruise's weird comic turn is something truly experimental on his part. Night and Day isn't trying to be as gritty as Logan or Ford vs. Ferrari, but Mangold is unquestionably one of the best action directors working today, and it's fun to watch him try something more outrageous. Additionally, it is an original idea that is not based on any already published works of intellectual property, which feels unusual in today's film industry. Sadly, negative reviews, stiff competition at the box office, and a tone and confusion made this presumed box office favorite a dud.